Stinging nettle is a great herb, a perfect herb for nourishing herbal infusions, and I think it's the best way to ingest stinging nettle. You really get all of the benefits, I think, or most of the benefits anyway, from drinking the nourishing herbal infusion of the leaf of stinging nettle. So stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, is the species that is most often worked with in North American herbal medicine. There's also Urtica urens, which is more of an annual nettle that is found more across the pond in Europe and the UK. But the Urtica dioica, Urtica, the genus name means to burn, which is that stinging sensation that you get when you touch a living nettle plant or you brush against a living nettle plant. Dioica means two houses, which refers to the fact that it's a dioecious plant, so it has different plants have either male or female flowers on it. There is a powerhouse of nutrients. There's vitamins, there's the carotene, an array of carotenes, which is, our body can turn into vitamin A. There's a whole range of B vitamins, vitamin C complex, vitamin D even, and vitamin K. Then a large array of minerals. We have some of the really common larger minerals that are important that we have in large amounts in our diet, like calcium, magnesium, iron, potassium. And then we have some of those minerals that we can have in smaller amounts but are still very important, like selenium, zinc, chromium, boron, cobalt, phosphorus, copper, manganese, selenium, silicon, tin, and sodium is the list that I've come up with, that I've found that nettle has. So just a full range, and then it's 10% protein, so it has so much to offer. And then there's probably a huge amount of other phytonutrients that maybe we know about as humans and maybe we don't even know. I think when we think about what's in a plant for chemistry wise, and it's so vast. Like, I don't even think humans can fully comprehend or understand the complexity that just even one plant has to offer us. And that is one reason why I love working with plants as simples, is because they are so complex just unto themselves. They have so much to offer us, such a range of complexity. And then you can really even, within how and when you harvest it, or what species or where you harvest it from, there's just so much variation as well, which is really fun to work with. Back to stinging nettle, however. The Nourishing Herbal Infusion of nettle, so we're going to weigh out 1 ounce of the leaf, which is quite a lot. This is what I weighed out this time around for 1 ounce. It's about up to here. And so we would just fill this with boiling water, give it a stir, put a tight lid on, and then top it off with boiling water again. So you make sure that the jar is as full as you can get with water. And then you put a tight lid on it and let it steep for a minimum of 4 hours. And then you can let it steep longer if you want, as long as you refrigerate it once it comes to room temperature. If you don't break the seal, it can stay in the fridge for multiple days. And then once you do break the seal, you really want to drink that whole quart within 24, definitely within 48 hours. And keeping it refrigerated while you're not drinking it. It can be reheated if you want. That's not going to harm it in any way. Some people like to drink warm beverages. If you do heat it, I would maybe suggest putting a little bit of miso paste in it, or even a little miso powder or a little tamari, something that's going to give it a little savory, salty note to it. I don't think that honey or something sweet would necessarily go well with nettle, because that's it would be like putting sugar with your spinach or with your kale. It doesn't really those flavor combos don't work. So we want to go savory. I personally really like nettle iced. I think it tastes delicious and it's very chuggable, either when it's fresh out of the fridge or if it's in a cup with some ice. And sometimes the ice is nice because it can dilute it a little bit, the flavor, as the ice melts, because nettle, of all the nourishing infusions, I think a lot of people absolutely love it, especially if their body really needs it. Some people, it's just a hard flavor to first get used to. It's very green. If you're not used to a lot of chlorophyll in your food, then that can also affect it. So for some people, if you aren't used to eating a lot of green food or green vegetables or plants, then sometimes it can maybe give you your stomach, make it feel a little queasy at first if you're not used to having all that chlorophyll, because this is a super green food for sure. Very rich in chlorophyll, and we've definitely concentrated it and extracted it. So I made a nourishing infusion last night, and it's been sitting for well over 8 hours at this point, and we're just going to strain it out so you can see how beautiful and dark and rich the color is of this nettle. And while I do that, I'll talk some more about the benefits that it has to offer. So this is one herb that I think is a favorite of a lot of herbalists, and because it covers so much as far as the different parts of the body's health. Let's see if we can get a good sound on that seal. There we go. So I love that these mason jars work so well because they can really seal the infusion. When you pour boiling hot water into the jar and then cover it with a tight lid and let it cool, it will definitely vacuum seal, which helps preserve the infusion for a few more days. And it also just helps to cook the infusion while it's in the jar. So nettle is just like, it's full body benefit because it's so nutrient rich, but specifically the immune system, it's really beneficial for, especially for autoimmune conditions or allergies. I have a friend who, I've always had cats, and I have a good friend who would come over to my house, and she'd only be able to sit on certain chairs. I mean, maybe I need to be a better house cleaner too, but she had a cat allergy, and she'd always be leaving my house with runny eyes and, itchy, watery eyes just from being in a house where there's a cat. Well, she got onto the nourishing infusions and loves nettle, and now she has a cat, and she doesn't have any cat allergies, and she lives with a cat and, loves the cat and cuddles with the cat all the time. And, I was like, remember, like, you used to not even be able to hang out in my house for very long because I had a cat. And she's like, oh. I was like, I think it might be the nettle. I don't know. So I really do think it is the nettle. And so it might take a couple months, of consuming the nettle. Also, if you have seasonal allergies, then drinking nettle, oh boy, like starting, give yourself a solid 6 months. If you get spring allergies, drink the nettle once or twice a week, the Nettle Nourishing Herbal Infusion, and then you can, hopefully in the spring or whenever your seasonal allergies are, you will notice a major depletion in the symptoms. So that's a lot of nettle leaf, right? Now that it's rehydrated. That is a lot of leaf. And it's cut and sifted. So if you were harvesting your own nettle, it's really hard to get it. I mean, I guess you could put it in a food processor to get it cut really small. But a lot of times if you're using your own nettle that you've dried, you're going to be like filling the jar basically, like with the full, whole leaves. So that's why it's important to weigh it every time, because every batch is going to look a little different. But if you know that you always have 1 ounce by weight, then you know that you're being consistent. Look at how dark this nettle is. If you have nettle tea, if you make a tea of nettle, it's just going to be like a very dull amber color. And so it's just really obvious that you're just getting so much more just so much more of everything. Okay, so not only is nettle beneficial for the immune system, it's also really beneficial for the respiratory system. So if you have, asthma or are tied in with the allergies again, or if you're recovering from some sort of lung infection, the nettle just can really help the lungs, helps the integrity of the lungs and makes them more flexible so you can take deeper breaths. Also, classic herb for improving the hair, skin, and nails. So it makes your hair shiny and helps it grow long, makes your nails really strong without any ridges. If you have really weak nails or nails that have really deep ridges in them or nails that peel really easily, it's really a sign that you need more minerals in your life. And same with like hair that's unhealthy, unless it's from chronically treating it with hair dyes and whatnot. But anything in skin, if there's like really dry skin or eczema, really kind of rashy skin that with no known cause or understanding, like these are all things that nettle can be really beneficial for. But as I was saying with the nails can be a really nice marker for the amount of minerals that you have. So if your nails are really weak, it's a sign, that's the last place your body is going to put the minerals. So it's a sign that you just don't have enough. And so these really mineral-rich, nourishing infusions just can really, really help strengthen all aspects of your body and right down to your fingernails as well. Glandular support, full support of hormone health, skeletal support with all that calcium, magnesium, boron, chromium, like really helps to build the integrity of bones and bone density, especially if you're recovering from an injury, can be really beneficial. Nettle's also classic urinary tonic, so if you have chronic UTIs or if you just want to strengthen the integrity of your bladder, urinary tract, and the health of your kidneys, nettle is the number one. If you have any sort of kidney disease or issue, I would go right to nettle personally. Cardiovascular health, just general support of the whole cardiovascular system and the integrity of the veins. So especially if there are varicose veins or kind of weak veins, it can just really help with the strength and flexibility of veins. Liver health, really beneficial there. Digestive support, brain support, brain health, mental function, overall enhancing energy function and chi, vitality of life, which is really noticeable, especially with the Nourishing Infusion. Support of the nervous system, so if you feel like you get a lot of anxiety or stress or edginess, then it can be really beneficial for that. Enhancing fertility. And then also there's a lot of science behind it right now for helping to balance blood sugar levels. So that's something to work with as well if you are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes. I'm guessing that you are already keeping good track of your blood sugar levels. And so if you're going to be drinking a lot of nettle infusion, then you just might, I'm sure you're already keeping track of that, but you might need to take less medication. So just keep a close eye on that. And then if you want to grow, harvest, and dry your own nettle, it's pretty easy to do. It's definitely a very weedy plant. You want to be careful where you put it because it can take over with rhizomes that grow underground, kind of like a mint would grow. So just careful where you put it. It's going to like really nutrient rich and kind of damp soil, like it would naturally be found maybe on a stream, on the edge of a stream bank or something. Harvest it. A lot of people like to use gloves while harvesting so you don't get stung and cover your arms. And because it's so protein rich, when you hang it to dry, you just want to hang a few stems together at a time. You don't want to put a big bunch together. Or if you're going to spread it out on a screen or something, just lay it out. Be careful not to bruise it, and you don't want the plants really touching each other a lot because they will rot or mildew. So ample drying space. And then you can cut it up, the stem, the leaves, all of that, and work with it for the nourishing infusions. You generally don't want to harvest nettle to dry when it starts to go to flower. So before that, it's okay, but once it starts flowering, there are some constituents in it that can actually be more challenging for the kidneys, according to many people say that. So just, maybe when it's thigh high, the nettle, because it can grow to be quite tall, but before it starts looking like it's going to bloom at any point, but it's still really leafy, then that's when you would want to harvest it and hang it to dry. So I hope that you practice working with nettle, get to know nettle, and you can learn more about it on my Healthy Herb podcast episode number 15, where I think it's about an hour-long episode where I really dive even deeper into stinging nettle.